Good morning, I'm Alisa Zee, and you're listening to the Sunday edition. And from the I Learn Something New Every Day department, did you know that today is, and this month is, National Clergy Appreciation Month? Now, in my book, every day, every week should be Appreciation Day and week and month for our clergy across the country, across the world, because we're so grateful for the fine works that they do. But this officially on the calendar is National Clergy Appreciation Month. Now, I'm joined by two wonderful guests this morning from the Ecumenical Theological Seminary, Ecumenical Theological Seminary, that is ETS in Detroit. And they have a very specific mission, and I'm just so grateful that these two folks are with me here this morning. I am joined by Margaret Priest and the pastor of the Ecumenical Theological Seminary, the Dr. Charles Clark. And yes, I did tell you that I would call you doctor. At least once I would remember to do that, Dr. Clark. So thank you very much for being here with me this morning, and good morning to you both.
Oh,
very good. That's your cue to say good morning, Margaret. That's your cue.
Thank you, Alisa.
All right, one of you, either one, jump in and tell me, what is ETS?
Ecumenical Theological Seminary is a seminary here in the city of Detroit that was started in 1957 by a group of pastors who wanted to get together and discuss continuing education kinds of topics about their theology, about the strategy for running their congregations, and that's how it started. And it also was part of the Cranbrook campus at that time, and has kind of morphed over the years into what we are today, which is a fully accredited seminary in the Protestant tradition. We are a Christian seminary right downtown on Woodward Avenue.
See, I too was started in 1957, but with a very different mission, obviously. Now, Dr. Clark, how long have you been with ETS?
I've been with ETS for a number of years. I started there as a doctoral student in 2004.
Okay.
And I've been associated in one capacity or another ever since. At present, I am the director of recruitment as well as an assistant professor.
And you get to sing Margaret's praises when it comes to her lovely singing voice.
Absolutely. She has a great singing voice. We're going to get her on the road.
I think that's really important because she's shaking her head, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. What is different, either one of you, what is different about ETS as opposed to other seminaries, and how do we have a lot of seminaries here in Detroit?
First of all, we don't have a lot of seminaries of the Protestant tradition in Detroit. In fact, we're the only of the Protestant tradition in the city of Detroit. But what makes ETS different, Ecumenical Theological Seminary, is a place where we have all traditions at the table. When you name the tradition, and that tradition is at the table, and it is probably, in my estimation, the richest learning environment that I've ever been in, because everybody is at the table and sharing what they do, how they do it, and we're learning from each other as well as teaching one another.
Thus the name ecumenical.
Absolutely.
There's a reason it's called that, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's the ecumenicism of Ecumenical Theological Seminary.
Is that a word, ecumenicism?
Probably, but
we'll take it. I like it, ecumenicism. Margaret, how long have you been with ETS?
I actually started at ETS about 5 years ago as a volunteer.
Okay.
I retired from automotive, and my husband was a student there, and they wanted some volunteers. I went down one December, and look what happened. I got hired. I'm currently Vice President of Administration, and I'll be there 5 years in January.
Oh, congratulations on your upcoming anniversary then.
Yes.
Now, when a student comes to the seminary, obviously that's a huge step for somebody to say, I want to attend the seminary. There aren't many bigger steps in life when we make that kind of decision. What kinds of concerns do they have? What kinds of questions are they looking toward to determine whether or not this is the right step for them, and how do you guide them through it?
Most of our students come with a sense of calling on their lives, and what we really do is try to help them sort their calling out. What do you see God leading you to do? Is it pastoral ministry? Is it chaplaincy? Is it some other kind of ministry that you feel God calling you to do? Once we get that piece sorted out, then we lead them into the program that best suits their needs. We have Masters of Arts in Pastoral Ministry. We have a Master of Divinity degree, which is the seminal degree that prepares students for ministry all around.
Okay.
And we make sure that we get them in the right place at that point.
Which is critical. Now, are you seeing more people turning to God now than maybe before, or less? Because obviously, and this is for both of you, obviously when we're hearing the news every day and we're immersed in what's going on around in the city of Detroit, sadly all we hear for the most part is the sadness and the tragedy and the killings and the violent crime and the child poverty. I know Detroit and Flint just ranked the number 1 and number 2 cities in the nation for the number of children living below the poverty level. There's a lot of sadness and a lot of desperation. Sometimes people can take that and they turn it to the negative, but sometimes they say, wait, maybe I need a little more something in my life, and I'm going to go turn to God and look for answers there. Are you seeing a balance? Is there a change?
I think historically people move toward church and God in times of crisis. But in this current age, it seems that the tide has changed. We're not seeing what sociologists have often seen when they've done these studies in the past. Right now, one of the things that has happened is many folks don't see the church like they used to. In the 40s and 50s and 60s, the church was the center of the community.
Right.
And it was the answer. Now people are looking in all kinds of places for answers. And so the church isn't getting the folks that we would normally see in the crisis time.
I'd also like to add that statistics tell us that although the mainline Protestant churches and Catholic churches are on the decline with membership, there is a tremendous increase in the evangelical side of the church.
Really?
And I think what we're seeing is that folks are still looking for an answer, but perhaps not the traditional organization of the church that we've all known that Charles is addressing. Now they're looking for a way, I believe, that leaves them more what they perceive as spiritually fulfilled from the evangelical. And the beauty of Ecumenical Theological Seminary is that we feel that we provide a curriculum that allows them the flexibility to develop their own ministry in their mindset as what they feel God has called them to do and how God has called them to serve the community.
Are you seeing people come out of desperation sometimes? And what do you say to somebody who comes and says, I don't know where else to turn, maybe this is the place for me?
I don't know that we're seeing people come to the seminary to study out of desperation. I think people come to the seminary to study out of a sense of calling. And they're looking for a way to train themselves and to fulfill that calling. Perfect scripture that comes to mind that I think exemplifies what we're talking about is Paul tells Timothy to stir up the gift that is in you. And so what we're doing at Ecumenical Theological Seminary is helping people to stir up or develop the gift that is already in them.
I love that. Stir up the gift that is within you. What is the average age of a student at the seminary, and is that changing?
Well, our students' average age is about 53 years old, because most of our students are in second careers or have retired, and as Charles has said, they are yearning to meet the call that they feel God has given to them. The great news is that in the last 3 years, we started to see what we call our youngsters, our 20-somethings and 30-somethings.
Those are youngsters in my book.
Come to the seminary, and it's tremendous because of the perspective that it brings to the classroom discussions when you've got someone that's 20-something just out of college and really trying to find themselves in a classroom that's someone that might be 70-something, as old as their grandparent or something. And so that dialogue is very rich. And as it crosses a generation, and both of them leave that classroom, I think, much more fulfilled and broadened about how they can use God in their lives and assist others in their lives.
That has to be a fascinating balance. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of those classrooms because, yes, the discussion, I mean, I look at just discussions I have on a day-to-day basis with my children, whether it's my 27-year-old or my 12-year-old, and perspective and experientially, obviously, we come from very different places. However, our hearts are still aiming to express themselves. So that balance has to be fascinating. What do we say to the younger generation? Because imagine the good these younger people could do when they come into the seminary and they can go back out to Detroit, because they're not so far removed from what some of these young men and women are going through in the city of Detroit. How can we bring them a little bit closer to doing these good works? I've stumped the expert. I see a question mark over the doctor's head, and I guess therein lies the rub, right?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to do is make church and God relevant in the lives of people today, especially our young people. For some reason, the church has failed to remain relevant with a lot of our young people. We've been so determined to do things the old way. In fact, I was having a conversation recently where somebody was saying, most churches are operating on a 1950s model. And here we are in 2013, and the society has completely changed around us, and we're still operating in the old mode. That's the key, I think. We have to, as the church, as a seminary, we have to update our message. I'm sorry, scratch that. How we deliver our message.
There you go. The message needs to be the same, right?
The analogy I always use is Amazing Grace is the same if you play it on reel-to-reel, cassette, or CD, or MP3. It's always Amazing Grace. It's just the delivery is different.
Right. I love that. You've got great analogies. Margaret, get in there.
Another point to add to what Charles is saying is we're finding that society today, the issues that all folks, no matter what age, and they have to deal with in society today, are a lot tougher in the fact that we are now willing to talk about them. When 20 years ago, 10 years ago, many of the issues that are discussed in society today were pushed under the rug.
Right.
So one of the attributes we also think of Ecumenical Theological Seminary is it is a place where those of different mindset can come and have those difficult conversations and respectfully have those difficult conversations and perhaps leave that conversation with a broadened mindset. And it falls back to human respect for each other, and we think what we've learned in our religious studies about Jesus' respect for all, the least of mine.
My brothers.
Thank you.
That's
Pastor
why you're
Clark.
a team.
That's why you're
a team. That's right.
But ETS is a place where they can come and have those conversations, and that's so important because I think a lot of the social ills that we see in our community and in our region and in our world are because folks don't have a place where they can have those discussions. Christian-based, theologically sound, theologically supported, and come out with an educated opinion that might be broader than the one they walked into the room with.
Some open-minded, non-judgmental discussion where they have a safe place to talk about things.
Exactly.
I like to characterize it as learning to operate out of the principles of love, as opposed to being judgmental with folks.
You said that in your best Barry White voice, too. The principles of love. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to diminish the message. It just kind of caught me there. Like I said, nobody said religion cannot be fun. It should be. It's a part of your life.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Before we close, is there a website that people can go to find out more about Ecumenical Theological Seminary? Sum up.
Absolutely. Our website is www.etseminary.edu. And we are having an open house coming up in November 21st. We also have a workshop called Paul as an Urban Prophet that will be presented by Dr. James Waddell on October 19th. That's a Saturday.
Great.
And we welcome the entire community for these events.
Beautiful. Give the website one more time.
www.etseminary.edu.
Beautiful. Margaret Priest, and yes, that really is her name, and Pastor Charles Edward Clark, Jr., the doctor, is in the house. Thank you both so much for being here with me this morning.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Alisa.
Absolute pleasure, Alisa. Thank you.
Once again, I'm Alisa Zee. You're listening to the Sunday Edition.